Impeachment is the word of the day. The first step of the impeachment process of Donald Trump has started, and Donald Trump is flying off the rails as a result. We will talk about all of this. This is an impeachment inquiry, important word. A lot of people very clearly not understanding the full process, and why would you? Impeachment of presidents is not a common thing. This was announced yesterday by the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. Let's take a look.
The actions of the Trump presidency revealed the dishonorable fact of the president's betrayal of his oath of office, betrayal of our national security, and betrayal of the integrity of our elections. Therefore, today, I'm announcing the House of Representatives moving forward with an official impeachment inquiry. I'm directing our 6 committees to proceed with their investigations under that umbrella.
So there's confusion about what this is and what this is not. Impeachment is a long process. There are 3 primary steps, and these can be subdivided into even really 10 or 12 different steps. But the generality, the 3 primary phases are an impeachment inquiry. If the inquiry leads the inquirers to decide that actually impeaching the president via a trial is appropriate, you go to an impeachment trial by the House of Representatives. And after that phase is complete, phase 2, you go to phase 3, which is a vote in the Senate as to whether or not to convict the president and thus remove them from office. Now, this is not going to lead to a conviction of Donald Trump in the Senate and thus the removal of Donald Trump. The Senate is controlled by Republicans. We don't have to go through the details, but as you know, if you've been following politics for the last couple of years, with some very limited exceptions, Republicans are not interested, willing, or even remotely considering removing this president from office. So the process that Democrats will now follow must be strategic, and it must be thought out, because Donald Trump will try, and he is already trying, you will see his tweets momentarily, to turn this around into he's the victim, he's a martyr just doing great things for the United States, and these witch hunt Democrats won't let him just make America great again. So the goal here is hurt Trump in 2020. Because the impeachment process is not going to remove Donald Trump. So that then becomes a question of, are we confident that Democrats can carry this out in the right way? Is there going to be infighting among Democrats around this such that it will become a distraction? We already saw there's this member of Congress from Hawaii who is running for president named Tulsi Gabbard. She says she's against what Nancy Pelosi is doing. Are we going to see conflict within the Democratic Party that will allow Donald Trump to take advantage of this in some way? Last night I did a live stream on YouTube about the breaking impeachment news, and there were a lot of people who were saying, David, this talk of impeachment backfiring, that's a Republican talking point. No. I'm not talking about the process backfiring insofar as the impeachment inquiry is not warranted. On the substance, Donald Trump clearly deserves, at minimum, an impeachment inquiry. Will not put the cart before the horse. Depending on what the inquiry finds, we can talk about whether the impeachment trial is the next step. That's not what I mean when I say backfire. What I mean by backfire is that if Democrats bungle the process, if Democrats bungle the PR around this, it will allow Donald Trump to paint himself successfully as the victim martyr, and it will not hurt him in 2020. I've been getting emails from people saying, David, it's over for Trump. Trump needs to resign and set up Mike Pence to pardon him the way that Richard Nixon did. Number one, it's unlikely that Donald Trump's ego would allow that to happen, but I don't think it's necessary. Donald Trump is not going to be convicted on impeachment by a Republican-controlled Senate before January of 2021, which is when the next Congress and president would be sworn in. So there are 2 ways that this can go, given that Trump won't be removed before the election. Number one, this doesn't work because Americans get exhausted by 14 months of it, or however many months, I guess 13 months leading up to the election, and it ends up helping Donald Trump. That's one way. The other way it can go is that the inquiry reveals the president's wrongdoing in such an uncontestable way, to such a degree that it destroys Trump and Republicans in the 2020 election. When we go back to Bill Clinton, people like to remind me that Bill Clinton's approval went up during impeachment. But remember, number one, Bill Clinton didn't try to interfere. Number two, Bill Clinton had a strong economy. And number three, what was at issue were lies about an affair. Donald Trump has engaged in borderline traitorous behavior. And of course, Donald Trump is absolutely losing it on Twitter, which is an indication that he is not going to allow this process to play out calmly in the way that Bill Clinton did. I've been telling you for years, if impeachment starts, what we've seen on Twitter so far by Donald Trump will be nothing compared to what we will see. And it's already happening. Donald Trump starting to wind up yesterday, tweeting, such an important day at the United Nations, so much work and so much success. And the Democrats purposely had to ruin and demean it with more breaking news witch hunt garbage. So bad for our country. Later tweeting, presidential harassment in all caps. And then this morning, scaling it up even more, Donald Trump tweeting, quote, there has been no president in the history of our capital C country who has been treated so badly as I have. The Democrats are frozen with hatred and fear. They get nothing done. This should never be allowed to happen to another president. Witch hunt. So remember, Trump won't be removed by this impeachment because, once again, Republicans control the Senate. But Donald Trump is already losing it. If there were to be, listen, imagine if Donald Trump were to be convicted and removed by the Senate. Imagine the level of violence that we would see happening from Trumpists. I would actually consider staying away from public places. I really would. But in the end, that's not going to happen. And the conversation has been about, is the president going to be removed? And what is the strategy on that basis? The real question is, should the president be impeached given what we know? And the answer is, as far as an impeachment inquiry, obviously yes. So this inquiry is the first step, and it is the correct step. There is no question about it. The political strategy around it is important, given that the Senate is not going to vote to convict. But on the facts, obviously, there is a completely obvious case for why this impeachment inquiry is now starting. And it's not only Donald Trump who's flipping out, it's also Rudy Giuliani. Let's talk about that next.